Okay, so good evening, everybody. On behalf of INOAUG, I welcome you all for this Oracle INOAUG Explore session. So today we are going to see an important and advanced topic like web services, unleashing the full potential of Oracle Apex, mastering the REST API development for modern applications. So our expert Rutvik Prajapati is going to present it, and he is an Oracle ACE associate. He has worked in IT industry for more than 9 years. He started his career as Oracle Forms and Reports developer, now shifted to Oracle Apex. So he has extensive experience on Oracle Apex. Right from version 4, he's been working on the Oracle Apex technology, and currently is in Canada. And in spite of the time difference, he has volunteered to present this topic for us. So let's all welcome him. And At the end of the session, we'll open up so that you can ask the questions, whatever doubts that can be discussed at the end of the session. And thank you. And over to you, Rutvik.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for this wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. I know it's Friday evening and you all are in mood of the weekend, but still, thank you so much that you decided to spend the next 1 hour with me. So the main idea to have this session, because I have seen a couple of experienced developers who have 10 or 12 years of experience as Oracle database developer, and also some new Oracle Apex developer having 3 or 4 years of experience. And when we ask or during the interview that regarding the REST API, then they do not know anything about it, and that is absolutely normal, because it might be possible that they have not encountered to that kind of requirement in the project in which they are working on. So we generally think that it's very easy topic and everyone should know it, but at the same time many developers still do not know how to create the REST API, what is the REST API. And that is my main motivation behind this session. So here a little bit about myself. As Richard already said everything, I have 9 years of experience and I'm working with Oracle Apex since 2014. Currently I'm working as a programmer analyst at Loblaw Companies Limited. So here I'm working in a finance department, and where I help different users of different department inside the finance. We have account payable, account receivable, and we as a technical team helps them to automate their daily workflow using different technologies. So this is what we are doing currently. And here is my Twitter, LinkedIn, and my blog URL. If you would like to reach out to me, then you can directly DM me over this platform. So I'm from Ahmedabad, and 9 months ago, in last July 2022, I moved to Canada, and currently I'm living in Winnipeg. So this is a new country. There are a lot of challenges. I have started everything from the scratch, so I'm still dealing with a lot of challenges. And the very great challenges here is the weather. So on the left, you see that this is what we have just 1 month ago on April 5th. So this is the condition, and winter is here very long, 6 or 7 months. And on the right, the picture which I took just yesterday, and currently we are enjoying these sunny days. And for next couple of months, we have weather like this. So we all are right now very happy here. 2 or 3 months ago, I started this group, Canada Oracle Apex Special Interest Group. And basically the main idea to have a monthly event or technical event on Oracle Apex and connect all the Apex developers here in Canada. If you want to get more idea about it, then please visit this Twitter and LinkedIn page. I just want to say this one quote before starting, because we all are humans and it's very common that we have some kind of fear which stops us to moving forward in our life, whether it's personal life, whether it's professional life. And one such fear is a stage fear, which is common in everyone, I think, and fear of public speaking. And we can deal with that. We can face our fear, we can learn the skill of public speaking, and we can overcome with that fear. And if you are interested to do this, then there is a great group program going on, MASH program, which is Mentor and Speaker Hub. It is running by a couple of great people in Oracle communities worldwide, and I was part of this group in May 21. Basically, they assign you one mentor, and then mentor connect with one-to-one at regular interval, and they help you. That mentor help you in everything to help you with the public speaking. They help you to choose topic, abstract, how to submit the CFP, how to design your presentation, and all the stuff. So if you are interested, then you can visit this website, massprogram.wordpress.com, and you can learn more. And it's come, we have, a normal perception that we should be expert in order to be public speaker, but that is not true. I'm not an expert. I learned something while working on the project, and I learned something, and I'm sharing this with you today. So you do not need to be expert in order to be a public speaker. All right, so today's agenda, we have a lot to cover. We are going to start with Apex architecture, and then what is ORDS, what is REST API, and then we will see how to create two different ways to create the REST API. One is auto REST feature, and the second one is how manually creating the REST API. And in the last, we are going to cover how to secure the REST API. All right, so let's start with Oracle Apex architecture. So Oracle Apex follow three-tier architecture where browser send the HTTP request to the middle tier. On the middle tier, we have Oracle REST Data Service, which is a Java application, and it deployed on the Java application server, WebLogic, Tomcat, and using Jetty, you can also use it as a standalone in standalone mode, right? So ORDS receives HTTP request and it redirects it to the database using JDBC, and it use one of the connection pool. Database process that request, send response back to the ORDS. ORDS return that connection back to the connection pool and sends response to the browser, right? So this is complete flow. And unlike other three-tier architecture where we have our application logic resides in the middle tier, in Apex, everything data and application logic are all on the database engine, on the database tier, right? And that is something special about Apex architecture, because Apex is a metadata driven framework, and whatever your application logic, everything is going to store in its own schema on the database. And because of these features, we have zero latency data access and dynamically driven by Apex metadata, right? So the only work of the ORDS is to convert the HTTP request into the JDBC. We have not going to write any logic on the middle tier. So now let's quickly understand what is ORDS, because in order to understand the REST API, we have to understand what is the ORDS. So as I told you that ORDS is a mid-tier Java application, and it is alternative for Oracle HTTP service, and we can deploy it on the Java application server like WebLogic and Tomcat. So it maps the standard HTTP request to the database request, and because of the ORDS, we can access the relational database, in our case Oracle database, and also the MySQL database over the HTTP protocol. And for that, we do not need to install the JDBC and ODBC driver. So the creating the REST API in Apex, we always say that how to create the REST API in Apex. So basically, we are not going to create it in the Apex, but the REST API or exposing your data and the functionality over the REST is a functionality or feature of the ORDS. So ORDS and Apex both are different product, and the REST API is actually a functionality of the ORDS, right? So a couple of great features. So ORDS automatically returns a query in JSON. Your client, your browser sends the HTTP request. ORDS map convert that request, redirect that into the database execute that query, fetch the result set, return that result set to the ORDS, and then ORDS convert that result into JSON automatically. You do not need to do anything, and send that JSON to the client. So that is one feature. Another great feature is the pagination, because our data, our table have millions of record, and it's always good to fetch all the data in the batches instead of fetch all the data in the one operation, right? So Oracle Apex also provide that feature of the pagination. By default, the pagination size is 25. We will see it later on. And the Another great option or feature is that for the security is that OAuth 2.0 authentication. So using OAuth 2, you can secure a REST API, and we will also going to see that. So what is a REST? What is the API? So when I have to explain someone who doesn't know anything about the API, so uh, we are humans and we are interacting with each other using a social media application like WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and similarly, if computer application wants to interact with each other in terms of data exchange, they want to exchange the information with each other, and then they can do it using the API. So I generally explain that API is nothing but the WhatsApp for the computer application, right? And there are two API. One is SOAP, which is XML based REST API, and another is REST. So we are going to quickly learn about what is the REST. REST stands for representational state transfer, and basically it's the architecture that provide a connectivity between two systems, and it uses the HTTP protocol for communication. So in simple terms, we have client and we have server. Client sends the request using one of these four HTTP method: get, post, put, and delete. There are also other method, but here we are going to focus on this four method only. Server process that request, sends the result back to the client in the form of JSON or XML. So earlier it was XML, but now it's mostly a JSON. So this is how simply REST API works. It's a basically request and response model. So as I told you that REST communicate over HTTP, and it use the standard HTTP method for our operation. So in any application, we are going to perform this for CRUD operation, right? Either we are creating the record, we are reading the record, we are updating the record, or we are deleting the record. And for each of these operations, we have HTTP method. So for create, we have post method, and the SQL equivalent of this method is insert. For read, we have get method. We are going to use the get method when we want to read the data, and it's similar as a select statement. For update, we are going to use the put method, and which is same as our update statement. And for delete, we have the same delete method, and it's the same SQL equivalent delete statement. So these are the four standard methods for our CRUD operation, and that we are going to see in our demo. All right. So this is the structure of the ORDS web server service. Sorry. So on at the top level, we have the schema, and under the schema, we need to create the module. Module is basically a logical collection of the similar web service or API. So we can consider module as our package in PL SQL. And inside the module, we need to create the template. Now template is basically mapped with the resource. What is the resource here? So we have our table, we have our procedure packages. So for that, we need to create the resource, and we need to create our pattern. I will show you later on, so you will get the more idea. And inside the template, we need to create the handler. So for each template, we can create four handler: get, post, put, and deletes, right? And this is the standard URI. URI is basically endpoint URL. So in API, we said what is the endpoint URL. So this is the standard format of endpoint URL for ORDS. So in the red, we have server, and then in the green, we have ORDS. Basically, that is the ORDS alias that we provided at the web server level. And then the next four part is our interest. So my schema. So as I told you that on the top, we have the schema. So first we need to provide the schema alias. We need to register that schema with ORDS, and at that time we have to provide the schema alias. After the schema alias, we need to create the module, and module base path we need to provide, which appear here in the URI. And after the module, we need to provide the template URI. And if our web service has an in bind variable, then we can also append that in our URI like this. All right, so our main topic, how to create REST APIs. So as I told you that we have two different ways to create REST API. So first is auto REST, and second is the manual. So let's first quickly understand what is auto REST. So auto REST is basically concept of creating a REST data using the zero code. ORDS provide this functionality. So basically, these are the object for which you can enable this option. So for table, if you enable the auto rest, then you can get for method. You can perform all these four operation on tables: get, post, put, and delete. For views, we only get. And for if you want to execute any functionality of the procedure function or package, so then only we have the post method available. We are going to execute the procedure, so that is why it's always a post method. So a couple of benefits is that we do not have to write any code, and with the click on few clicks we have this option enable. We create the REST API, but we do not have any control or any flexibility for this, right? Because this is a zero code. We only have we cannot perform any validation, we cannot add any extra logic if we want to. So that is the downside of auto rest. And in real world we are never going to use the auto rest because we have very complex scenario in the real world. So let's quickly jump onto the demo. So this is my Apex, and you need to go to the SQL workshop and the RESTful services. All right, so right now my schema is registered with the ORDS. So let me first deregister the schema. All right, so if your schema is not registered with the ORDS, this is the message that you see for the first time. And first we need to register our schema. Our schema is WKSP underscore WS1, and we are going to register that with the ORDS. And it always a good practice to provide a different name than your actual schema, because you do not want to expose your actual schema name to the outside of world. Sorry. So here I provided the schema alias API demo. I do not want to install sample service, and we do not require authorization right now. And I'm going to save these schema attributes. All right, so my schema is now enabled, and from here you can deregister your schema. From here you can install the sample service. From here you can import REST services, REST ORDS RESTful data services. If you export it from different environment, you want to import it, then also we have that functionality. And from here, let's say you want to change the schema alias name, so you can do it from here. All right, so now let's quickly see how to enable object. So we are going to work on this OEHR employees table. So we go into the tables, and here we have this option REST. From here I'm going to enable the REST enable for this object. So REST enable object, I click yes, and again we need to provide the object alias, which is different from our actual table name. So I'm going to do it as EMP. I do not require any authorization for these things. And if you require the authorization, then you need to create the user basic authentication you need to provide. So you need to create the role in database, and then you need to assign this role to that user. So we are not going into that because we have a lot to cover. So when you click on apply, this is the endpoint URL. So this is our server, this is ORDS alias, this is our schema alias. In the last, this is our object alias. So let's quickly run that one. So this is a Postman, and I'm going to test that API in our Postman. So for Postman, this is my base URL. I created the environment variable here for my server. After that, ORDS schema alias, and then object alias. Yeah. So our method is get, because we are going to get all the records. So when I send this request, I got the response in JSON. Yeah. So I got all the records. And I told you that by default the pagination size is 25, so you can see it here has more. So yes, this has more records. Limit is 25, offset 0, and the count is 25. So right now we have 25 records, and if you want to fetch the next set of the record, then ORDS automatically provide you this URL for the next set of the records, right? And let's say if you want to get the single employee, so you need to append the employee ID here, and it will give you the list of only the record of only the single record, so such single employee. To insert the record, we need to use the post method, and with the post we need to provide the post body. So here I provided the JSON body, and you need to provide the same element, JSON element, as your table name, and ORDS automatically map this. And when you send the request, 400 bit request, because primary key validation, because my record is already created. So if I go with this EMP, I go with 999. So my record is already created, right? So this is already record created in that table. That is why I got the bait request. So here you see that we do not have any control to handle the exception here if we have the primary key error or any other error, because this is auto rest feature. We do not have that kind of control. So let's now delete that employee. So here I'm going to use the delete method, and here I'm going to provide my employee ID, that is 999, and which I want to delete that thing. And I got status code 200, which means it's successful, and I got the response that rows deleted. So this is about table. Now let's say we want to rest enable our package. So let's quickly show you. Okay, in our package we have this package EMP. This is our standard package. Inside we have insert procedure, we have update procedure, we have delete procedure, and we want to rest enable this. So how we can do it? So same, we need to go to the rest, we need to rest enable this. Here we need to provide alias. So I'm going to provide it manage EMP. I do not require authorization, and I apply it. So this is my endpoint URL. So here it's package alias, that is manage EMP. And now if I want to use any of the procedure inside this package, then I need to use that procedure, the same name, in this URL. Okay, so this is manage EMP, my package alias, and insert OEHR employees. So basically this is a procedure which I'm going to use to insert the record. So because this is a procedure, we are going to use the post method, and in the body we have to provide the exact element as our input parameter. So these are all our in parameter, and we are going to provide the same element in our JSON body. And when we send this request, we got a response. It's 200, and we do not have any response because we do not have handled that response. We have in this procedure, because we created this procedure for PL SQL, we enable it, and we have not handled anything to send it back. So that's why we got the null response here, but the record is already created. And if you want to see it, then we can do it here again. For 999, I'm going to send the request, and this is the response I got for 999 employee, right? So this is how we are going to use the auto rest feature on table or on package and procedure. So I'm not going into more detail because we have a lot to cover for the manual REST API. So let's go back to our slide. Sorry. All right. So this is how we enable our ORDS schema, and ORDS also provide this API, PL SQL API ORDS, and inside the ORDS we have different procedure and function, and using that also you can do achieve the same thing. So for creating the REST API, we do not require the Apex, using only ORDS and SQL developer, and using this PL SQL API ORDS you can create the REST API. So this is a second way to create the REST API. And if you want to check if because let's say you do not have your Apex access and you want to check whether your schema is REST enabled or not, or your schema is registered with ORDS or not, then ORDS provided this view user ORDS schema, and using that you can check whether your schema is registered or not. So I show you the demo, and this is auto rest using Apex, how to do it on table. All right, so let's skip that thing for now and jump on the manual REST service creation. So in the auto rest, we have zero code feature, and using that we can create REST API. But if we want to create manually, if we want more control, we want to manage everything by our own, then we need to create this manual REST services. We need to provide the SQL and PL SQL core. We have to create the PL SQL package based on our requirement. So in manual REST creation, we have more control, we have more flexibility. We can validate the incoming data using the PL SQL, and we can also do the complex logic, implement the complex logic in our package in whatever way we require based on our requirement. So for manual REST service creation, first we need to we enable the schema that we already did it, and then we need to create the module template, and inside the template we need to create the get post put or delete handler. So here is the use case or scenario. Let's say this is our employees table, and we want to create the manual REST service for this employee table. So it's always a best practice to design your web service. What should be your pattern of template pattern? What should be your module name? What which type of method you want to create before creating the REST API? So here I quickly design something. So for module, I provided that HR/v1. V1 is that this is version 1 of this module or for this API. In the future, I want to create my version 2, and I do not want to mix up with version 1 with the version 2, and that's why I provided the version 1. In template, I write employee slash colon ID and question mark. So colon ID is actually a bind variable, and question mark indicates that this is an optional parameter. You can provide its value or you cannot, it's depending on your requirement. And then in handler, I'm going to create all this for method for this one template. So for get, using get method, I want to get all the employees, and if I provide the employee ID, I want to get the single record. And for post, I'm going to create a single employee record. For put, I'm going to update the single employee record, and delete, I'm going to delete the single record. So this is my design, and I'm going to implement that in REST. So let's see the demo. So let's go to this REST API. And right now we do not have any module. So let's import that module because I have already created that. All right. So this is our module. So as I told you that this is my module name HR/v1. This is my base path, and this base path is going to appear here in the endpoint URL. Inside this module, this is the pagination side. Size by default is 25. If you want to change it, then you can. This is the template, and this is the URI for the template, employee slash colon ID and question mark. So as I told you that question mark indicates that is optional parameter. And now let's understand that the first method, that is get. So remember, our requirement is that using this get method, we want to get all the employees, and if we provide the employee ID, then we want the single record. Okay, so in the source type is collection query. We have other source type, but for now I'm going to use this collection query for this get method. Here I provided the SQL statement. Select this column from employee, and to manage that requirement, if I provide the employee ID, then I'm going to return that single employee ID, and if our ID parameter is null, then I'm going to return all the employees. So this is how I control that ID optional parameter in my SQL statement. So you can refer your bind variable directly inside your SQL or PL SQL code. Right, so this is a get method. So now let's test that thing. I am going to close all this thing. All right, so again, this is my base URL. This is ORDS schema. This is my schema alias. This is my module HR/v1 base path, and inside that, this is my URI. And remember that here I do not provide optional ID parameter. It means that this will going to return me all the employees. So again, it return all the employees. Our status code is 200. Here is the limit 25, count is 25, and we have more record. So if we want to fetch the next set, remember the last employee ID is 124, and let's fetch the next one. So I click on that one. Here the offset is 25, so it's going to send return me the next 25 record. And now we have link of both. If you want to go previous, then this is the URL. If you want to fetch the next set, this is the URL. So this is automatical functionality of the ORDS. We do nothing about that. Okay, so this is how to fetch all the employees. Let's say we want to fetch a single employee, then we are going to provide the employee ID here, and this will give me the result of a single employee only. Okay, so this is about get. Now let's understand post method. All right, so post method, the source type is PL SQL code, and here I created this package HR API v1, and inside that we have this create employee. So let's understand that first. Okay, so this is my package and this is the procedure. For this procedure, these are all the in parameter, and I'm going to return the resource location. Basically, just like ORDS, I want to return this relation link to the self means that for the same record, which record I'm going to create, I want to provide link back in the response. So for that, I created this resource location out parameter. This is status code and status message. So these three are the out parameter which I created. Let's go inside the body. So as I told you that now we have more control. So before doing anything, any insert operation, I just want to validate my input parameter. So here I perform that validation. If p first name is null, then I set this error message and I set this status code to 400. 400 is basically standard HTTP code for a bid request. So I set this code to 400. Similarly, you can perform any validation logic. For now, I did it for these three parameters: last name, email ID. Based on your business requirement, you can do the more validation here. And after if our validation, I created this insert statement. I basically insert that record in our table, and I'm returning that employee ID into this my single parameter because I want to create a link to this record. Okay, so then I assign that p resource location. So I'm going to create this. It's a relational location. Uh, Status code is 201. 201 status code is basically when you, because we are inserting the record, and 201 is the standard HTTP code when we created the record. And I set this message that record is successfully created. If we have any exception, let's say we have bid request, then I raise that exception here. And if we have any other exception, then this is going to be executed again. It's not a good idea to return the SQL error message directly to the client. So another good idea is that you create the error handling package and log your error inside this package and return the error ID to your client. So that is one good practice. All right. So this is about our package, and these are all the in parameter. Now let's understand our post method. So inside this post method, the source type is PL SQL, and I call that package procedure API1 underscore create EMP. So here these are all the bind variables. Remember, one bind variable is this one, and these are all the different other bind variable. And you need to provide this value of this bind variable in the JSON. So if we go to this create EMP, now we want to create this employee. This is our endpoint URL. We do not need to provide the employee ID. The method is post, and because it's post, we need to provide this body. And in body, we need to use the same bind variable that we used in our source, right? In our resource handler source. So these are all our bind variable, and we need to provide the same name here. So ORDS automatically map this bind variable with the input parameter, and these are my out parameter. So for out parameter, we need to define it here. So we have name bind variable. So this name, whatever you write in this name section, it's going to be appear either in request or response body. Bind variable is basically a bind variable that you used in your PL SQL code. Then access method, we have two access method, in and out, and in and out both. So in is basically you expect the value from the client while client requesting your resource, and out means that you are providing value back to the client in the response. Now we have two source type, header for out parameter, header and the response. If you select the header, then this value going to be appear in the header response header. When you send response back, these values appear in the http header, and if you select the response, then it is appear in the response body. So we will show you later on. So here I created the three parameter: self, status message, and XORDS status code. So here this self is a special parameter with a dollar sign in front of that. So whenever you create the dollar sign in front of any parameter, or let's say for get method you are using the SQL as a source, and for any column alias you are going to use dollar, then in ORDS it is rendered as a link. Remember, we want to provide the link to whatever the record we are going to create it. So if you provide dollar in front of your parameter name, then it is rendered as a link in a response. Okay, because here we are going to resource source type is response, so this will appear in the response. The second out parameter is status message, so I mapped that with our this status message bind variable. Again, this is out, source type is response, and data type is string. And this XORDS status code is a standard implicit HTTP parameter, ORDS implicit parameter. And for that, I'm going to assign this status bind variable. And the access method is out. And I'm, instead of response, here I'm select the HTTP header. Okay. So if you want to see that implicit parameter in ORDS, so these are all the implicit parameter: body, body text, content type. And here is the XORDS status code. Okay, and this is a HTTP header variable, right? So we are going to set value of this XORDS status code with this bind variable, whatever we are sending back from our package. So we are mapping that here. So now let's test this one. So this is our post method, and we are going to create this record. I think the record is already created, so let's first delete this one. If okay, so this is again the delete method. I deleted this record because it is already created. And now let's send me this thing. Okay, so our status code is 201. Our status message is record successfully created, and this is link. The name of this link is self. Why? Because here we provided this parameter as a self, so that is why it is this is the name of self. And this is our URL, and it is pointing to the employee slash 999. Okay, and because it's employee slash 999 and it's a get method, when we send this, it will return us the record of this newly created employee. Now let's test this thing. We do not provide the name for the first name, and we are sending this request. So it gets a status 400 bid request, and the status message is first name cannot be null. Why? Because here we set it that here we are checking that first name is null. Then we are setting the error message that first name cannot be null, and the error code is 400. We are assigning this error code to this status message XORDS status code, and it is 400 is a bid request, and the status message is the first name. All right, so this is about create. Again, the update is same. I'm going little quickly because we need to cover a lot. So update, again, the update is same. We need to provide this in parameter, and in the out parameter, it will give us the result back. So let me click that one. All right, so right now the salary is for 4,400, and let's say we want to update that salary, and so let's send it to 500, and okay, 5,000, sorry, and we do not want to provide any other. Okay, so we are just only want to update the salary of this employee to 500, and when we send it, we got the response that record is updated. And when we check it again, then our salary is 500. So this is how we update the record of our employee record. And in the last, for the delete, I have created this delete method. It basically accepts this one in parameter and two out parameter, status code and message. First is check whether the id is null or not. So if we do not provide any id here, and if we try to execute this method, we got this message: 400 bit request, id cannot be null, because we want to provide the id. And then if we find the id, then we are going to delete that record. If xql percentage found, it means that if record is deleted, then we are setting the status as 200, and we are setting the message that employee p10 successfully deleted. So let's delete that employee 999, and we got this message that employee 999 successfully deleted. All right, so this is about version 1. Let's jump to, okay, so now after some times we have new requirement. Now we also want to provide want to insert the employee photo, right? So for that we created this new column, mime type, file name and content. And we do not want to modify anything in version 1, because the client are already consuming that API and we do not want to disturb them. So we created this new version, and this time here we created we design in very different way. So for now, for version 2, I created these 3 template. First one is employee. So for employees, inside the employees, I created 2 handle, get and post. So using the get method, I want to get all the employees, and using post, I want to create the single employees. For template, now I created employee slash colon id, and this time I do not use the question marks. It means that this id is a mandatory parameter now, and I want to perform all the single record operation, get, put and delete, using this template. And for the last template, employee slash id slash photo, I just want to get the photo of the employee and I want to update the photo of employee. So this is the design of my module 2. So let's go to this RESTful API. Oh, sorry, here, let's go here. And then import module 2. The package. Yeah, so this is our module 2, HR/v2. Inside the module we have 3 template: employees, id, and then employees id photo. So for this employee we have 2 methods, get and post. So let's first understand this new package, HR API v2. So this is the new package I created for version 2 module API, and inside this we have this for method. So now I implemented this in a little different way. If you remember that for the previous package, okay, so for create EMP, we are expecting all the individual parameter as in parameter, and then we use the out parameter. For this version 2, I do not want to do that thing, because let's say my JSON is very big, we have a lot of parameters and we do not want to do that thing. So I created a little different way. So I created this clock parameter. Basically, I want to pass whatever JSON body we have directly into this clock parameter, and I want to handle that inside my package. I do not require any individual single parameters. This is the second way you can implement your package, and this is all 3 standard out parameter. So in body, let's close this one, package. Okay, so this is our club, and very first thing is that we need to parse that club. So this is apex_json package. Using that, you can parse, you need to provide the path, and you can extract individual elements from that JSON body. The next thing is that we need to validate that JSON, because we never trust any client, because we expect the employee ID, they provide the in number, they provide the text. So it's very important that we validate our body. So these are the validation for my input, all the element. After that, I'm going to insert this insert statement, and in the last I'm doing the same thing. So this is some extra thing, right? And now let's see how we implemented that thing. Okay, so for post, we are going to use source as a PL SQL type, and this is a new implicit parameter, that is body text. So as I show you that ORDS provided couple of implicit parameter. So this first is body. So body is on its type is blob, and body text its type is glob. So because we require the glob, JSON is basically a glob. So I use the body text. So whatever you provided here in JSON, let me close this one. This is my version 2. Create an employee. Okay, so this is the body. Whatever the body we have, we can directly pass this body in our procedure. We are going to parse it. We are extracting this individual element. We are validating it, and if it is valid, then we are inserting in our table and we are sending response back. So this is using body text. You can get this body as a glob, and these are all the standard parameter. Here I need to provide this thing, $self status message, and this is same as our version 1. So now let's test this one. So this is my version 2 and the employees. This is my body, and I'm going to send this request. I got 201. My record is successfully created, and this is the link of that record. Okay, so this is about create. We have 15 minutes, so now let's quickly understand the update, because all right, so this is update. So for update, we require two things. We require the request body, and we also require the employee ID. So that's why I use this one in parameter. Again, we need to parse that thing. We need to validate our parameter, and then we need to update the record. And once you do that, you are going to set the out parameter, and this is the exception section. So this is update. And okay, so this is update, and this is the template. Here ID is the mandatory parameter. Because this is update, we are going to use the put method. This is the package procedure that we created, and I'm calling it from here, the employee ID. So I'm whatever ID I'm going to pass in the URI, I'm using that here. Body text is basically clock that we are going to pass at a clock, and these three are the out parameter. So one interesting thing here is X forward location. So now instead of self, in previous request, we are going to use this parameter as a self, and the bind variable is resource location. So when we are doing using the self, it is rendered as a link, but I do not want to display the link, because I want to display the whatever the new record created. I want to directly send that record as a back to the client, right? I do not want client to click on this one extra time and send the request again to check what's the new employee is created. So let me first delete that thing, and I will. Okay, I deleted that thing. I created this new employee, and remember, see here, it is sending us the status message that record is successfully created, or in previous version we have the message that record is successfully updated, but we do not want to do that. Instead, we want to send the actual record back. So now let's say for this, I'm going to update the salary to 500, and if I send this, status is 200. Why? Just a moment. Okay. Let's say 6,000. All right. So we updated this record, and instead of our standard method that our record is successfully updated and providing the link, I actually directly return whatever the parameter we whatever the record we created. So I directly return that information here, and in the last we again have the standard link. Okay, so this is about update. Now let quickly cover the last method, which is employee/photo. So employee/id/photo, for that I created two methods. Let's first understand the update, because we want to update that photo. So for that I created this update photo method, And for here, I'm going to provide the ID because for which employee I want to update that record. For content, because now this photo is a binary file, so instead of body text, here we are going to use the body. Okay, so this is the method update photo. We need to provide the content type, file name, and in the response, these are three standard out parameter. So let's test that thing. Update photo. Okay, so this is my URL employee slash 999. This is my employee ID, and I'm going to update the photo because we are going to send the binary file. So in here we are instead of that JSON, we are going to select the binary, and here we need to select the file. So that's demo emp avatar. So for now, I'm going to select this file. I send it. Okay, and the response is 200, and the content successfully updated. And this is the link to the resource. Now let's understand the get method. So for get method, it's very easy. Here we need to select the media resource. Instead of collection, we need to select the source type as media resource. The first column that you select, you need to provide the MIME type, and second, you need to select the blob column. And here I'm going to use the ID. So this is very simple query. And using that, here is our link. So it's a get method, employees 999 and photo. I'm going to requesting the photo of that employee. So this is the photo. I got it. Now let's say I just want to update this photo. Instead of this, I want to use a different photo. So again, I'm in the update photo URL. API. I'm going to select the second photo. I'm going to send it. My status is 200. Message is successfully updated. Now let's quickly test this one. And this is my different photo. All right. So this is about two different version of the API. Now let's quickly jump. We have 8 minutes. So these are all the different things I provided. What are the implicit parameter, explicit parameter, and then ID, and the question mark is the optional bind variable. Manual REST services. So whenever you use dollar in your SQL query, it is appear as link. And if you want to do it from PL SQL, then you can append the dollar in front of the parameter name, and then it will render as a link. Okay, now let's quickly cover how to secure the REST services. So we have two types. One is basic authentication, and the second one is OAuth2. So basically, for basic authentication, you need to create the ORDS role, database role, and then you need to create the database user. You need to assign your role with the user. And if you want to do it using the Apex, then you need to create the Apex workspace user, and you need to assign Apex group to that user. But basic is not that secure. I'm not going to cover that here. I'm going to cover the OAuth2. So for OAuth2, we have two components. We have server side and on the client side. So on the server side, first we need to define the module. Then we need to create a role. We need to create the privilege. Then we need to create the client, and then we need to link all these four things together: module, role, privilege, and client, right? So this is the task of the server side that we need to perform. On the client side, now we have because once we create the client, we have client secret and client ID. So first we are using that client secret and client ID. First we need to access or request the authorization token. Once we get that token, we need to append that token in our header, and we need to use that to get the actual resource. Okay, so I will show it. Okay, so very first thing is that we need to create a role. So here, as you see that we created this role, and by default you need to provide any role. So here I provided this name in oug.demo.role. So this is the first step. Second step, you need to create the privilege. You need to assign the role to that privilege, and you need to choose the module, which module you want to protect. Okay, so this is the second step. Okay, after that step, if you try to access your API without providing any authorization, then you can get this error. So instead of going into slide, let's actually test that thing. Okay, so for this v1 we have this get, and right now let me close all this thing. Okay, now and import. I'm going to import this third v3. Okay, so inside this v3 we have simple employee, and this is simple method. So right now let me test this one. If I'm going to execute this thing, (401) unauthorized, right? So right now we do not provided any authorization. Here we select the no auth and we are sending the request. We are getting this response back. But let's say now we want to secure it. So first, as I told you, that we need to create the role. So inside the role, this is the role which I created in INOAUG.demo.role. So this is the role. The second step is that we need to create the privilege. Sorry, this is the privilege. So INOAUG.demo.privilege, this is the privilege. Here I need to assign the privilege with my role. So here I selected the INOAUG.demo role, and then you need to select which module you want to protect here. So I selected HR/version 3. So these are the module. So now this module is protected, and now if you try to access this without any authentication or authorization, then you got this 401 unauthorized, right? So now how to access this resource, right? So for that, yeah, so for that we need to create the client, and then we need to assign the role to client. So there is another API OAuth, and in that we have this create client procedure. We need to provide the client name, grant type is client credential, honor is the schema, and the description. We need to provide the email ID of the user, and here we need to provide the map, because we attach or we mapped module, role, and privilege. Now we need to map the client, privilege, and role. So we in that way we are connecting all these four things together. So here I provided the privilege name inoag.demo.privilege, and then after that we need to assign the role to client. So for that we have another API, that is OAuth.grant client role. This another method. First parameter is client name. So here the client name is Rutvik Prajapati on the left side. So I provide the same client name, and we need to provide the same uh, client role. And once you do that, it will create your client in ORDS, and you can get the detail of the client, and using this role, sorry, using this view user ORDS clients. So when you query this view, it will give you the client ID and client secret, and this is what we need. So let's see that if we have that or not. No data found. It means that first we need to create that thing. So first I'm going to create the client. I created a client. Next I'm going to create this role. My role is created. Now I require the client secret and ID. All right, so this is client ID and client secret. That is, we needed it. Okay. So this is the authorization URL. So now here I'm going to use OAuth2 as my authorization. This is the token name. Grant type is client credential. access token URL, because now we have client ID and client secret, and we require this authorization token, and for that we need the endpoint of the access token URL. So this is the standard format. I will show you later on for this access endpoint URL. Here is the client ID, so we need to provide this new client ID, and then client secret. Okay, once you do that, and then we need to create this grant new token, generate new token. Our authorization authentication is completed. This is detail about our token name, access token, and it expires in 60 minutes 3600 seconds, and token type is bearer. We need to use that tokens. Once you do that, here is the option request URL or request header, so we need to use that in request header. And now when you send this, it will give us this result. Okay, so this is how we are going to perform OAuth2. So this is OAuth2 client flow. Basically, we have three entity: client, resource server, and authorization server. So resource server is basically where we have our API, our resource, and authorization server is who grant us the authorization token. So in our case, our resource server and authorization server both are same. That is our Oracle database. So first we have client ID and client secret. So the client going to request the access token to the authorization server. Authorization server check this client ID and secret, and it grants the access token, and which is valid for a set period of time. In our case, by default is 3600. Once you do that, using that access token as bearer token in header parameter, you have to send the request, API request, to the resource server. Resource server is go validate that access token with your authorization server. It validates it. If it is valid, then it returns response to the client. So this is complete the OAuth2 client credential flow. This is just a basic overview. Again, it's a very deep topic. OAuth2, we have different flow or authentication flow, sorry, authorization flow. So this is a simple client credential flow for your understanding. And we require the access token URL. So this is the standard format: server, ORDS alias, schema alias, and then OAuth2 and this token. So using this URL, you can request the access token. Yeah, so this is about the demo, how we use that authentication token using OAuth2. All right, so if you want to learn more, then jeffsmith.com, and there are a lot of great, sorry, this is one of the great resource to learn more about the ORDS. jeffsmith.com, and the REST APIs, the entire section is dedicated to REST API and how it works. And here we have different how example. So there are a lot of information if you want to learn more about that. All right, so with that, I think we are done now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, Ritvik, so a couple of questions like, how can we send the data from Oracle Apex to other applications? For example, Oracle EBS using REST API, is it?
Yeah, so using the authentication, I saw your message on WhatsApp, right? Just before the session. Are you asking about that, or this is different thing?
This,
Okay.
some,
All right, so
I
we have
think,
this apex underscore web service. So what I show is how to create the REST API, and the question is how to consume the REST API, right? So this is the apex underscore web service package, and using that package, there is a method make request, and using that you can invoke the any REST API. So this is again a different topic, yeah, but there are a lot of information available on the Google, so you can search that thing.
fine. So can we pass multiple values of ID parameter? I think your
Sorry, can you
example, yeah, I think in
multiple
your
values?
example, you are showing like employee ID question mark, right? Colon
Mm-hmm.
ID. So like
Mm-hmm.
that, can we pass
Yeah,
multiple?
we can. Yeah, we can pass the multiple parameter. ID, but and that is again depends on how we want to design it. We can pass it, but I have never used that thing. I only required this single parameter, and then whatever required, I am using the body, but I will search it and will let you know if that is
Yeah,
requirement.
there's a small change in that question. Actually, for one ID,
Hmm.
the user wants to pass multiple values. For example, employee ID itself, we want to
Hmm.
pass multiple employee IDs and get the output.
Okay, so I think if I understood correctly, that instead of creating the single record, I want to create the multiple record in one request, right? Multiple employees in right?
Yeah,
Is
when you
that the
get correct.
all right? So yeah, we can do that right now. What ever package I created, it's currently supporting the single employee. Okay, but if you
Mm.
want to provide the functionality to your client where they can create the multiple instance of that employee record in the one go, then you can design your PL SQL package. You can design your JSON body. You can expect that multiple record in JSON. You need to parse that record in the JSON, and then you can create that thing. So yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. So another question is, if 60 minutes after that, how can we generate the new refresh token
Yeah,
in
so
the
we need to generate that token again. We need to follow the repeat the same procedure again
right?
after the 60. Yeah, so once we have this authorization token till 60 minute, we can use the same authorization token for any subsequent request to other API also. Okay, and once it is expired, we need to generate the new token again.
Right.
But if you are going to implement is using because this we are doing this testing in Postman, so but in programming we always generate the new token before using any REST API.
Okay. Yeah, I think we had a very good session, and so thanks a lot, Ritvik, for your
Yeah, thank you so
great
much.
time preparing things, and definitely it was very much useful for uh, many of the participants. It has given a very good insight about the REST API, and especially the securing and using OAuth, so people can integrate with other applications. Right?
Yeah, so 1 hour to cover all this topic is very less. So I was little
Yeah.
fast in between because
Mm.
we have a lot to cover. But because ORDS and REST API is very vast topic, and it's inappropriate to cover everything in 1 hour. But I tried my best. But again, thank you so much everyone for joining. I hope
Yeah.
you learned something new today.
And maybe you can put your Twitter handle on the chat box, so people who are, can want to know more about APIs, they can reach out to you.
Sure.
And once again, we want to thank each and every participant for joining this session. And if you have any expertise you want to share, you can feel free to contact us. And since we connect in the next session, stay happy and stay healthy. Yeah. So Ritvik, you can note down his Twitter handle on the chat
yeah.
at Ritvik. Right. Thanks. We had a very good amount of participants, and I wish everyone a happy weekend and see you soon. Thanks, Ritvik. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thanks everyone.